Hey, what's good, Jivas, and welcome back to another episode of the Jiva Doya Talks. I'm your host, Nita, aka Jiva, and we are back on episode 11. And this morning we're talking about spiritual institutions. Now, like I said before on the reel I shared a couple of days back, this topic has been on my mind for quite a long time. And I was hesitating. I didn't know whether I should share this or not, but I've been discussing the topic of institution and its challenges with my close friends and mentors for many years. So I feel that it's a good time to speak about them. So I know that originally I said on the previous episode that I was going to bring Mamu Thakur to speak about guilt, but we had some issues with conflicting schedules, so we will have that talk sometime soon in the coming weeks. So stay tuned, it's going to happen. But just be patient. And in the meantime, we're going to speak about this. So, let's first speak about the need for an institution, and let's start with the good stuff. Institutions are kind of like the training wheels of our spiritual journey, and they are very much needed. They build temples, and in doing so, they create thriving communities. Where they create spaces for like-minded people or aspiring, seekers, aspiring spiritualists to to come together. And I mean, it's a beautiful and it's a beautiful idea to have a group of like-minded people come together to do kirtan, worship, hear the transcendental teachings, and dive into the scriptures and all that. Institutions also create a space for a safe space for us to congregate. They publish and print sacred literature. They also have a lot of different welfare activities. Institutions also keep us in check. They regulate our behavior, and they make sure that we're basically following the rules of our tradition. So when we first come in and we're seeking a spiritual path, or we're getting started on our spiritual journey, and we walked into the institution, everything looks perfect. And it's almost like a utopia, and you feel like this is what you've been always looking for. It seems that everything is working perfectly, and everybody seems so happy in the surface. In contrast with that material world, that material life we're so tired of, that it somehow gives us a sense of relief and even joy that comes from just imagining that prospect of a life and of devotion. And I guess that's important and that's okay, but at the same time, things can get a little tricky. These institutions, as helpful as they are in the beginning, they can sometimes become too controlling, and they can go from guide to gatekeeper, and there's a lot of centralized control. And yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, institutions lay the groundwork, and it's crucial to acknowledge that, but at the same time, not think that they're all in all. Like that. How do I put it? Like that entering the divine abode, or our goal of our spiritual journey to have the personal relationship with Krishna and render loving service does not depend, or you don't get it, or is it, okay, let me put it this way, it's not guaranteed by becoming a hardcore follower of the institution or a fanatic follower of the tradition either. So although there are so many good things that can be said about the missionary activities like book distribution and prasad distribution and welfare and relief and all that, that all these different activities that are carried out by the institution, the focus of this talk is going to be on the other side of it, and we'll discuss its dangers. And I mean, I don't want to sound too negative, but I don't like to be positive without acknowledging the bad parts of something, and I try to approach everything that I do in life with realism. So what I thought about this episode is just I would like to offer a more balanced narrative, or at least give you a different perspective, which I believe is often ignored because the society likes to present itself as immaculate. I think that's the word, like pure and perfect and untouched by material energy. When in reality, that's so far from the truth. So yeah, that's what we want to discuss today. So before we move forward, I just quick disclaimer. These are my views. I do not represent any particular institution. These views are my own, and they're based from my personal experiences worshiping and serving under different institutions, and also my observation of the current institutional climate over the past 4 or 5 years. And it also comes from, like I said, informal talks that I've had with friends, well-wishers, mentors, etc. So again, like with all our conversations, they have a lot of potential to become really extensive, and I don't want to just sit here and talk for hours. Ideally, I would like to open up this conversation and eventually have someone come over and join me to keep unpacking the different things that come up. So I thought maybe just let me bring 3 reasons, 3 reasons why I can't deal with organized spirituality or institutionalism. I'm sure there's a bunch more, but let's just keep it short. So I think reason number 1, name dropping, the limelight, and the hope to become somebody. So what do I mean by that? I don't know if you've ever noticed how spiritual societies are so focused on just becoming mainstream, on becoming big, on enlarging, growing, building more temples, and just rubber stamping everything with their name. And I mean, if you think about it, the PR game is so strong. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I'd be getting ads on Instagram for yet another temple or another program, and please donate for this and donate for that and become a life member and help us up in this temple, we can do it together. But to me, the bigger things get, the more impersonal they become. It's like a massive, there's the whole preaching, propaganda, devotee-making machine, and there's this also, let's keep the image type of goal, I guess. And I don't know about you, but I didn't sign up for this. I come from a different religious background, where it was very dogmatic. Everything had to just be followed and not question anything. So when I left that religious tradition, I wanted to look for real spirituality, not just a place where I had to just follow rules. And I did not want to manufacture my own religious process like a lot of people do. It's like, oh, I'm spiritual without being religious and all that. I didn't want to do that. I thought I can't just let my mind run wild and I'll cherry pick on here, and let me just follow a authentic traditional path. And I didn't just want to follow things. I wanted to be in a place where questioning and debate was encouraged. So that's the reason why I was attracted to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, not the institutional aspect of it. And I joined very, very young. So back in the day, the institution wasn't that. I mean, it was big, but it wasn't that. It wasn't doing so much propaganda as like today. It's. I don't want to get into details, but yeah, it was not like how it is now. And maybe because we didn't have social media and whatnot, but whatever. But I feel that because of how expansive things are becoming, this often leads to kind of objectifying also those who are not in the club. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not, you got to be a member of a specific temple, yatra, faction, group, congregation. You got to serve under a particular mentor, or even be a disciple of a particular guru to be somebody. And there's a huge cult of personality that's going on around. Like, if you are a temple president, a GBC, a big shot, a disciple of such and such guru, or like, you've made it. And if you don't belong there, you're not good enough. And you belong to the subordinate faction, I guess. And somehow those who are looking to be somebody, if they have not achieved any of those positions, they might internalize it as feeling like they failed somehow. And I don't know. I'm not sure if I spoke this on record, but it's a quick story. I remember I was down south India with my wife. We were traveling, and we were at the beach, right, walking, chanting, and somehow we met this devotee, and it was really cool because we were far away from devotees we were traveling for our honeymoon, so it was like 3 months, and we didn't really have devotee association. So meeting this devotee was really fun. So the devotee was also excited, obviously, and then she came and she introduced herself, and the first thing she asked us after our names was, "Who's your guru? Do you belong to this or that organization?" And I felt that was so odd, which actually made me record a reel. I think it was January or February this year. It's there on my Instagram. You can find it, about the whole "who's your guru" question, which is, I mean, it's such a personal thing, and it's just so odd that you are categorized, or you're respected or disrespected as such based on based on your affiliation. Again, I don't want to get into that. You can check out the reel and we can talk about it some other time. But that was really weird. And then we went to Vrindavan. I can't remember. We went to Vrindavan before South India. So we were in Vrindavan for Kartik, and there's this lady that comes to me and she's like, "Hey, you're this and that guy from Instagram." And I said, "Yes, whatever." And then she introduced herself, again, her name, and then the next thing she said, she was like, "I'm a disciple of blah, blah, blah. I come from this congregation, and I'm actually a congregational leader, and I have 150,000 devotees under me, and I am leading them into this parikram." And I mean, it's just so crazy because I didn't know what to say. I was like, I have 600 followers on Instagram. I don't know. Like, what do I say? It was so odd. And even my wife was like, what the hell? So I just don't know there's no need for that. It's just so bizarre. And I know it does happen in the material world, like outside, where you have to, kind of prove your accomplishments and all that. And I mean, I guess we have LinkedIn for that. There's no need to bring that into our spiritual congregations. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we all have that need or that drive to feel special. And it's going to happen at some point in our lives, or all the time. But to the point of narcissistic behavior, or I don't know, it's just so weird. Like, I think if you have that need to be recognized and you haven't, or you feel like you don't belong, maybe you can try to satisfy that need outside the institution and actually do something special for yourself, and just like maybe ask yourself about, what are your talents, your gifts, what can you give to others. And I'm sure you can get that recognition or that affection or love or care or attention that you're looking for. But I feel that it's kind of odd, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're using the institution to satisfy that need. So there's that, and then there's been observing also that attempt to the institution to behave like they're the chosen ones, and they are the messengers of divine love, and everything they say it's right. But again, if our preaching or everything that we're doing in the name of preaching, it's driven by that need, or to feel that need to be perceived as superior to others, or to just be perceived as somebody, then our attempts to actually give something of value to others will not be successful. Or it might be materially successful. We might keep building more temples and printing more books, but are we actually changing someone else's heart? I mean, we got to ask ourselves, have I changed my heart? Have I changed as a person? Only you know yourself. And I don't know, it's just so crazy, because I think that this whole institutional business becomes less about that spiritual journey, the acknowledging your crap, your challenges, your hardships, and looking for that inner change, and just coming up and accepting your difficulties, and it becomes more about this climbing this weird social ladder. It's like high school all over again, just at this time there's more incense and kirtan. But oh my God, and then there's this whole about the cult of personality. Just thought about this. There's this whole group of people labeling kirtaniyas also as pure devotees just because somebody decides to sit and do kirtan for longer than they can. So, oh, he can do more kirtan than I do, or he sings so beautiful, he knows so many rags, or he knows so many ways to play a particular instrument, then therefore he must be a pure devotee because I can't do that. I know I have a day job and I'm such a karmi, and I'm so, in the ocean of material suffering, but look at this guy, he does kirtan for 6 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 24 hours a day. He's always engaging in kirtan. And then, you have these traveling kirtaniyas. And certainly, again, talking about institutions, it's very important to have these players too. They actually play a very important role, don't get me wrong. But if the institution doesn't address the issues of this cult of personality, and if these emissaries, or this what's the word, like those who give the institution a voice, if they're not trained in the proper conception of the holy name, of the philosophy, of if they're not qualified, or at least in the path of getting qualified, and you're going through that purification themselves, it's very dangerous when they get labeled as pure or as highly advanced people. And the truth is, your worth or advancement isn't determined by your title, your service, or even how many people know you or know your name. But it's about your personal connection with the divine and your own progress. And it might look different for many different people. So that's my first reason. The second reason is that institutions often have a narrow worldview and that centralized control that I've been talking about already. So I think this is a big one, because I would like to address ego trips. You ever notice how some people and the organization, that they get this title, and like I'm saying, they're the next spiritual leader, the next big thing, just because they are disciples of a particular acharya, or they have built a particular congregation, or built a temple, or they're in this or that ashram, or they're wearing saffron, or it's always about the externals, because obviously it's easier to see the externals, and it's very difficult to see the consciousness of someone else. Obviously, the scriptures describe what a pure devotee looks like and how he acts, or at least a devotee in the higher stages, how he behaves. But nobody has time for that, right? Because we get caught up by the lights and the show, the acts, the programs, that, oh my God, everything is so amazing, and how I feel so good, that we don't have, we just don't use our brain matter so much sometimes, and we surrender so easily. And yeah, I mean, it's like, to me, it's really crazy if someone's old or, senior, old devotee, and then they're somehow famous or popular, they're automatically a pure devotee. And certainly we should offer our respectful obeisances to our elders, those who have been in the movement longer than us, those who have associated directly with our own Gurudev or our, the Acharya, those who have dedicated their lives to the movement and all that. I'm just going to tell you a story to also illustrate this control and desire to lord everything they can see. So once in lockdown, I was kicked out. The building manager kicked me out of the flat because I had 8 devotees over at my place for prasad and kirtan, and apparently there was a limit of 7 devotees. And to be honest, maybe it's my rebellious nature, but I thought that was stupid, and I didn't think too much about it. So eventually, he stopped the party, everybody was out, and then within the next couple of hours, he just showed up at my apartment unannounced. He had the keys of the flat, and he just straight up started yelling at me and telling, top of his lungs, he was just saying that, he was the ultimate authority, and I couldn't just decide how many people I wanted to have over. And I just said, I'm sorry, Prabhu, it's just one extra person. I mean, it was 7 people and plus me, if you can think about it that way. And basically he labeled me as, that I was putting the whole building at risk, and by contaminating everybody. And I thought it was so ridiculous. And I mean, even say Haribol, nothing, Prabhu, I want to talk to you, nothing. And I said, Prabhu, it's this whole thing is ridiculous. And anyways, I mean, I'm sorry, I broke the rules, and I was just trying to de-escalate the situation. But I feel that his narcissistic behavior, and I don't want to blame him only, but because he's part of the institution and he's brought up in that way, the way that the management communicates often, it's through violent communication. And I think, narcissistic behavior leads to violent communication. And if you are in the lower ranks, or you're just even out of that hierarchy, you are taught to accept this type of relationship and even criticism from these egomaniacs. And I think that's just so toxic. And I mean, COVID was wild, yo. It's like you can see people in positions of power just tripping like anything. And you could also see people's true nature, like the true colors are coming out. And I mean, don't get me started on also how the institution values building and rituals and all the externals more than actual people. I think I've brought some of those topics up with my talk. On my talk with Mamu Thakur and the previous episode. But yeah, it's like the only right we have is to do what we're told, and otherwise we can leave, and we're that disposable. And we are forced to just accept this just surrender policy because the management and the pure devotees and everybody above you knows better than you. And it's crazy because there's no space for dialogue, and I think that's a red flag to me too. Because, quick story, I remember when I was living at the temple and I was quite young, and I knew that my time was up. So I spoke to my ashram leader and I said, hey, I am leaving, and obviously he wanted to know why. So I said that it was because I was ready to pursue my university studies. After high school, I took a gap year or 2, can't remember. And I was just serving at a temple and just doing a lot of these things. And immediately, without even asking or anything, I was immediately labeled as being in Maya, studying his Delusion, and you're fallen, and you're probably just thinking for you're envious, you're anti-authority, you're thinking independently. And I was basically labeled as the lowest class of devotee, and it was so crazy because they like to keep you in this box where you can't think for yourself. And maybe we'll discuss more on that later. But I think that idea that we place, so there's two things. There's the idea that we play, that everybody that it's senior to us is a pure devotee, and then those in higher positions abusing that. So it also creates a culture of a blind following. And what happens when that's created is that it just opens the door for, creates a breeding ground for abuse, different types of abuse that I'm sure you're well aware of. What's funny is that I see a lot of the new members, the new kids, everybody gets lured in with sweetness. And like I was saying in the beginning, we walked in the spiritual institution and everything looks beautiful. And we had that one devotee who's like super sweet and everything, it's painted perfect, but then you're treated like, you're groomed into becoming another recruiter, and you're supposed to support the preaching machine, and if you don't, then you become just another number, and you just become manual labor, So another quick story. I remember after I was about to finish my university studies, I decided to give the institution a second chance, and it was a different temple, different congregation. So I was like, okay, let's just do it again. And I was serving this temple, doing a lot of manual labor, and renovate this hall that we were going to use for, I think it was Janmashtami, Radhashtami, whatever. So I was helping with the renovations and mostly painting, right? So it went on for a couple of days. And I remember the last day, we used to finish quite late for temple standards. But one day, I think it was the last, we stayed till midnight. And after we wrapped everything up and we packed everything, we had to take a public transfer to go back to the temple. Probably took a taxi or something, whatever, doesn't matter. So we went back and I was hella tired. I took a shower and I even spaced out a little bit before taking rest. But I knew that I was overworked and I just wanted to sleep in, So, so crazy. I've never actually told anyone about this, but yeah. So comes Mangal Arti next morning, and of course I was not gonna wake up for that. I'd never been really a Mangal Arti person. But anyways, the visiting sannyasi, who was also like a local guru for a lot of people in the congregation, and obviously he's also pure devotee, right? So he was visiting for Janmashtami, right? And I was staying in the room next to him. I was staying outside of, like, right next to his door, whatever. And I was on my sleeping bag, and he comes and he straight up just kicks me in my ribs, and to try to wake me up. And I was so crazy, and of course I was like, what the hell is happening? And he started yelling that why I haven't taken a shower yet. It's 3:30 in the morning, and I should be awake for Mangal Arti, because I was supposed to do this and that service or something with the sweets, or I can't remember. So I was so shocked that this person that I admired and I respected, and that actually sat for a lot of his lectures and even helped him for other things like, cleaning his laptop, whatever, like helping him with general stuff. This person just thought it was okay to wake me up by kicking me in the ribs. And yeah, he just started telling me that I was lazy, that I was a bad devotee, that I was not serious about my spiritual life. And I mean, looking back, it's like, who are you to judge my spiritual seriousness, my dedication, my conscience? Like, you don't know anything about me, because you've never, although I've served you personally, you've never actually inquired anything about me. So, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into this either, but there's also the cover-ups that have been going on for ages on cases of child abuse, mismanagement, spiritual deviations, and you name it. It's like there's this culture also sweeping everything under the rug, and because there's a centralized control, institutions can get away with it. So I guess, yeah, that's reason number 2 for me. And reason number 3 is a big one, is spiritual bypassing and gaslighting. And this one is a biggie also. If you remember, I touched upon spiritual bypassing on episode 2, so go check it out if you haven't. It's not on a video format, unfortunately. It's on Spotify, so I don't know if I can drop links somewhere here, but just if you're interested, just DM me and I can send you the link, or just type Jivadoya Talks on Spotify. I guess that works too. Pretty sure it's episode 2. To me, it's kind of weird that these institutions can talk all day about really high stuff, high spiritual stuff, but they can't give you beyond basic advice on normal things. Like, I don't know, like treating your partner with respect, or yeah, I'll maybe expand on that later. But it's just like this very cookie cutter robotic response, which is what I spoke about in episode 9. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out too. Bamo Takor and I go into more detail about spiritual bypassing. But to me, what bothers me, is this whole dodging of any dialogue, not just about the past, because sometimes you get also like gaslighted, or like, Prabhu, that happened 30 years ago, Haribo. But also about the present. Because again, we all collectively somehow believe the institution will take us back to Godhead, and the institution is perfect, it doesn't make any mistake, and everybody is perfect. That we fail to see that the institution very expertly dodges any type of debate. And it's like they're more concerned about their image than actually being authentic, that actually tackling the challenges that, like the personal, individual challenges that every devotee has. Because everything gets immediately labeled as you're suffering because you're in this material world. And I mean, you'll find devotees everywhere talking this, high philosophy, quoting Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, every whatever, but they're struggling in their personal lives. Of course, you don't know that, but they're probably struggling in their marriages. I mean, I can't remember where I said this, but a lot of the Hare Krishna devotees struggle in, especially, the older marriages, struggle a lot with a lot of guilt and things that happen in marriage, especially in regards to emotion, how do you call that? The emotional connection, the sex life, and all the things in between. And that's something that I want to bring up in the guilt episode. So you gotta wait for that. But we're all struggling in different ways. We might not be struggling in, I'm not struggling in my marriage, but I'm struggling in my work life, for example, or I'm struggling with the relationship that I have with my parents who are non-devotees, or maybe my fanatic devotee parents, or so many different things. And we can't just have a one-size-fits-all approach to fixing our problems, which is this whole, I think I was discussing this a couple of weeks back, this whole hospital analogy that you always get when you dare up to bring any of the challenges or failures of the institution. You're always hit with the hospital analogy, like, we're all just patients here, and we're all sick, and chanting is our medicine, and just chant and be happy. And I just, true, chanting is there, but how many of us are actually chanting purely? How many of us are, actively doing the inner work? We're just expected to just, chant, be happy, don't complain, Prabhu, just do your thing, just accept your fate, Mataji, just chant. And although, yes, in the pure stages of chanting, we won't be bothered by the fire of material existence, but before we get more, cryptic and esoteric, we cannot divorce our real human experience that is different for many of us based on our age, our sex, our culture, our karma, our stage in life, our relationships, and the other things that make us individuals. So and I mean, we can talk so much about this, and this whole how's it called, ad hominem fallacy, which instead of kind of like addressing the issues that you're bringing, which are real and they're coming from your experience of interacting with material nature, the institution goes immediately for character assassination. And that's also a cheap tactic to just make you shut up because you're questioning too much. So if, for example, if somebody were to put something on social media about something they didn't like about the institution from the past or from the present, and the institution sees this, immediately the institution labels again that person as an envious of the institution's success, or a Mayavadi or a Karmi or whatever. There's so many terms that come up just to kind of shut up and not validate the points that the other person is bringing. So if you look closely, very rarely, like I've actually not seen it, it's not so common to see the institution actually addressing. There have been cases, especially with the whole child abuse thing, that they've addressed it in certain ways, but yeah. More often than not, we often get this appeal to nature fallacy, and that pisses me off so much because I'll give you just an example to illustrate it. I know someone who's unfortunately struggling in her marriage, and they've reached out and we've talked about it. And eventually, after she got married, she got trapped in this abusive marriage, verbally, emotionally, and also physically. And yeah, because this marriage was arranged by her temple, she reached out to her congregation for support, and instead of getting the help she needed, or at least a place where she could be heard and understood, she was told, hey, I mean, just surrender and chant. It's your karma. You know, we're all suffering. The material world is a place of suffering. So just accept it and shut up, you know. And that's kind of messed up because, I mean, I also have a friend who's struggling with depression, and he also reached out for help to his congregation. He was told, you are, the reason why you're feeling like this is because you're not chanting enough. And you don't need therapy because what are the therapists? No, they're not devotees, so they can't help you. And of course, he left that institution, and he struggled for many years, and he found his way back, luckily, by finding a healthier balance between his spiritual and material life. And you know, he got his life back together. Eventually, he joined a different institution. Hopefully, he's more wiser now. But he had to do all his inner work, which is obviously his to do. But if you join an institution that looks so perfect in the beginning, I guess I mean, it's okay to have expectations that at least, I mean, if they can't help you, at least they can provide a safe space to open up about your struggle. So yeah, at least in this case, he found another institution where he fit right in, but his previous congregation still rejects him, and he's still, you know, labeled as whatever they decide to call him. But yeah, there's this whole thing that the reason why you're suffering, or the reason why you're going through this particular issue, or the reason why you don't fit in our particular family, congregational, whatever, institutional setup thing, there's also this appeal to purity type of thing where, hey, you're supposed to, if you want to be with us, being pure means that you live the temple and you're preaching 24/7, and you're meant to support the missionary activities and the conversion machine. I'm not talking conversion just about changing someone else's belief, but also in the monetary conversion. You know, like we're putting out so many books and so many activities and so many things outside because we want to convert that into also money, and so many stories we can talk about. But it's crazy because then everybody is thought to believe that they have to fit that mold. And I mean, it certainly happened to me where I felt that I wasn't good enough, or that I was basically, a bullshit person, that I had just wasted my time here because somehow I am less than everybody else because I have no attraction for book distribution or for the missionary activities, because I did not join for that. I didn't join a spiritual institution because I wanted to make the institution bigger, or I wanted to have fun in kirtan concerts, or I wanted to find a partner, or increase my sex appeal. All these things that obviously come as we transition into different stages of life and whatever, but like my main aim to join a spiritual group was to, it wasn't even about higher topics of, I wanted to enter into a particular lila and this particular swarup and all this. I wasn't thinking about that either, but I was just thinking about my personal development. Maybe I'll be labeled as a selfish person, but how can I help others if I haven't helped myself, if I haven't changed myself? And I know my problems in my heart, and I also need other people to call on my bullshit, and I need my superiors to also correct me before I go on this Messiah saving the world, let's make everybody chant Hare Krishna type of thing. So I personally think it's a toxic mindset. You might disagree, but yeah, those are the main things I want to bring up. I think that these behaviors might stem from maybe unaddressed wounds from our childhood or from our life before we were devotees, before we try to become devotees, or before we joined the institution. We certainly have a lot of traumas that come from our interaction with material nature and the things that we receive from our parents, from our group of friends, school, and whatever. And at some point we might have addressed our suffering, but not the cause of it. And then at that point in time, we meet the spiritual society who comes and say, we accept you as you are, come and join us. You don't have to change anything, because you just have to focus on the missionary activity. You don't have to do an external effort to change who you are. And I feel that then these type of people, or this type of mindset, it's very attractive for people that don't want to work on their issues. And then the institution is used, these people use the institution as a coping mechanism instead of actually applying the philosophy to heal themselves first. And that's so crazy. So I feel that they're very expert in deflecting from, the real issues or the real talks, because that doesn't give there's no benefit. That having spare time to actually have a personal relationship with someone, it takes a lot of time, effort, dedication, and that doesn't help the bigger scheme of things, the bigger preaching things that I spoke in the beginning. And that also sometimes can make you doubt your own judgment. And the worst part is that it keeps you stuck. Because of course, if you're constantly second guessing yourself, am I feeling right? Maybe it's me, I shouldn't feel this way. Maybe it's actually true, I'm not chanting properly. How can we grow spiritually? Because it happened to me for many years. I thought, okay, maybe the reason why I was suffering or the reason why I was complaining about a particular challenge that I was going through was because I wasn't chanting properly. And I was. Not properly, but as in I was doing my sadhana. Where was it pure or not, or good name or whatever? That I don't know. Probably was bad chanting, anyways. But I was performing my sadhana to the highest standard that I could maintain then, and I also kept my outside job, my karmi life, and I was trying to balance things, and I was getting a lot of challenges from the mature world, right? It's obvious. And I never got that support I needed, even though I spoke with devotees that were also involved. Like, I never went to a brahmachari to talk about these things. I went to devotees that also had businesses or had, they were married, and I thought, okay, these people have a better understanding of how the material world works, and this is the challenges that I'm going through. And instead of having that one-to-one conversation, it was more of a, let me quote this Gita verse to justify what I want to say, which is, Prabhu, you're suffering because you're an idiot, you're in karma, and you're not chanting enough. Why don't you come to our readings on Saturdays? And you're probably not doing your service properly because I saw that you missed a Sunday feast. And so, gaslighting is just another reason why I find it really hard to deal with spiritual organizations. When I see that someone has failed to apply that philosophy to heal themselves, like I was saying, and that need to always reach out to others, because the movement has become has become a tool for making others accept our beliefs, and the numbers are important, and increasing everything, and building more. And maybe we need to look inside a little bit. Maybe we're using the activities, the programs that the institution arranges to replace the lack of love and affection that we haven't received from the environment and relationships. It could be also stemming from problems with self-esteem that these leaders have. For me, it's like I've been practicing, or aspiring to practice, or involved with the spiritual movement for 2 decades. I joined when I was very young, and I can tell you for sure that I've had my ups and downs, and there were many times that I just tried to avoid that and try to pretend that everything was perfect. And it wasn't until I met devotees who were real about the struggle, and I think that was one of the biggest blessings in my spiritual life, meeting devotees that helped me open up and talk about the difficulties in the different ways, and the different colors that the material energy, how Maya attacks us, and all the different attractive different ways that Maya does her job. And I think that's also the purpose of this podcast. It's also my offering to these different devotees that have come into my life to offer their time and affection, and giving me love, and just try their best to understand me, and giving me also the tools to become a better human, a better person, and approach my spiritual life with more balance and with more authenticity. That's the reason why I also started this whole, sharing my journey in this direction. And what I also aim to achieve with this project is to also kind of open up these conversations. Again, this is just touching the surface. Hopefully I can have someone else jumping over and coming together to discuss these things. This is not just a one-time conversation. There's a lot that we can discuss, but the discussion shouldn't be one way. I also want to hear, so drop your comments, or reach out on Instagram at Jivadoy Journals, and let's have this conversation together. And also, I would like to hear what you're going through, and we can try to figure out a way together. But I just I don't want to make it political or a canvas to a particular institution or anything, but just to, again, open up this conversation and raise awareness that this thing can happen in any spiritual institution or of any particular religious tradition. I can only speak about the previous religious tradition I had growing up as a kid, and the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition that I am currently aspiring to practice. So thank you for joining, thank you for listening. Please take care, and we'll see each other soon.